kudos to the Hockey Samurai on Twitter. The Hockey Samurai, who I follow, posed this question yesterday. Which hockey trade broke you as a fan when you lost your sports innocence and realized it's all a business? The trade that made you cry. So I see this and I go, oh man, made me cry. Frank Mahovlich, devastated. The Leafs had lost 13 of 16 games. They had won the Stanley Cup the year before, had won the Stanley Cup, but now this is expansion. It's not a 16 league, it's a 12-team league, and the Leafs are in the East. Okay? And they're in the East against really good teams. They're not in the West against St. Louis and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and the Oakland Seals and Kings and Minnesota North Stars and the expansion teams. No, they're playing in the East. They're playing against the Rangers and the Bruins, right? And the Canadiens and the Blackhawks and the Red Wings. Jeez. So they lost 13 to 16. And Punch Imlach, general manager coach, who had won 4 Stanley Cups, decided, let's shake the team up. Let's trade Frank Mahovlich. He ripped the guts out of the team by trading Mahovlich, who he just didn't like. He intentionally called him Frank Mahovlich when they were doing interviews, right? Mahovlich had to leave the team a couple of times in previous seasons because of what was called a nervous breakdown, right? A nervous breakdown. Punch Imlach upset this guy so much, was on his case so much, called him Mahovlich, disrespected him so much that he finally traded him. And a couple of years earlier, I think the Chicago Blackhawks had offered like $1 million for Frank Mahovlich. This guy was an all-star every year. This guy was a 40-goal scorer. And I was devastated. And I looked, I kind of looked it up afterwards. I said, oh, like, what do we, like this, when this trade happened, how did it end up? So the Leafs trade Frank Mahovlich, right? Who after he left the Leafs had 237 NHL goals. They traded Gary Unger, who after he left the Leafs had 413 NHL goals. And they traded Pete Stemkowski, who after he left the Leafs had 187 NHL goals. We won't include the 2 or 3 goals from Carl Brewer. That's 836 NHL goals that the Leafs traded away in the Mahovlich deal, right? That's right. 836 goals that could have been scored for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And in exchange, they got Norm Ullman, 166 goals, Paul Henderson, 162 goals, and Floyd Smith, 25 goals for 353. So 836 to 353. Huh? So almost 500 goals difference over the terms of these players after that trade was made. So I rest my case. It was a horrible trade. I cried, and I hated Punch Imlach from that point on.